life, socioeconomic class, race.
But the other part of it that I think, and you probably have had to deal with this when you were on the force, is that you have this strange dynamic where, again, the woman, I can't say that she necessarily escalated it, but she did. She stayed there. And by staying in this situation she stayed there, when we would have let the guy go, she escalated it.
This is a tough one, and it goes to victim blaming. But what I see in a lot of domestic situations is, yes, people get abused, and sometimes they get abused throughout their life. But there are also those instances where some people will just antagonize a situation, antagonize a person, knowing that that person is volatile, unstable, and they'll antagonize. They'll send text messages. They'll show up with their new boyfriend, and they'll flaunt the new boyfriend in the guy's face. And I've said this on many occasions to young ladies. Listen up. Now, obviously, whatever happened in your situation wasn't good, but for you to show up at his place of work, or show up at a bar, or to send naked pictures of yourself, or to send videos of you having sex with your new boyfriend, all you're going to do is antagonize the situation. So when he shows up at your house or your place of work and he beats the shit out of you, I'm going to tell you right now that you have a little responsibility in that, because you antagonized a known nut. You don't antagonize certain people. All right? You just don't do it. And some people are their own worst enemy. And there's a bumper sticker that a cop used to have. He used to have it on his personal car. It says, "You can't help stupid." You can't help stupid. If you're stupid and you can't protect yourself and you don't understand the dynamics of interactions with people, you are your own worst enemy.
Right. And this probably comes up on the street over and over for you in a lot of other...
Not just in domestic, just interactions with just anyone in general.
Yeah, and you're right. It gets into the victim blaming, but on the other hand, it's part of the dynamic.
Absolutely.
And I think to ignore it, you're simplifying the problem.
And you just blame the bad guy. It's 100% his fault, but you got to look at what are these... what do certain people do to put themselves in a category of always being victimized? What behaviors are they doing? What are they doing?
Right. And again, he knocked her down the stairs, and nothing indicated that it was the first time he had done that. If you know what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely. She didn't say, she knew how to roll. She knows how to roll.
she did know how to roll.
Stunt woman.
and she got up and she ran straight across the yard. So it was like, nowhere did she. Anyway, it's a complicated, horrible situation, and I think, Nathan, you're right to sit across the street with the phone and just video record it.
It's not my problem. It's not my problem.
Well, here's something you'll be a lot more interested in, Nathan.
Yeah.
This was, I'm not sure what this is, when this is from, but it's from, let's see, TDC, and this is from a website called, let's see, I don't think I wrote it down. What was it? Criminal,
True crime or something like that?
Truecrime.com.
Anything on the internet is 100% believable, so don't even worry about it, Dave.
Anyway, this is from Georgia. Somebody stole a mortuary van, and he struck multiple vehicles on his attempted escape during police pursuit. But here's the thing that I found really interesting about this is, he turned himself in. So basically, he got into the mortuary van, drove off, hit a bunch of vehicles, and managed to escape the police, and then turned himself in. But when he left the scene, when he first got in, there was a corpse in the back on a gurney, and it fell out of the van into the parking lot. So it was a safe spot. It wasn't like he was like Bruce.
What are you going to kill him again? He's already dead.
That's true. That's true. So let me ask you this question. How often do you look at hearses or mortuary vans or ambulances when you're out driving and think, pretty sure the door's going to open and a gurney's going to come out with a dead body on it?
I'm hoping 100% of the time when I see these things that exact thing happens.
I always have I talk about awareness. We were talking about situational awareness for the active shooter. being aware of your workplace. I'm not always aware of that stuff, but I am always, whenever I see an ambulance or a mortuary van, I'm thinking this will be the day that
someone comes sliding right out the back door.
Well, yeah. I think we can all look forward to it.
I can think of 2 instances just in my very short, unillustrious career that we've had deceased people fall off gurneys while you're taking them out of the house into the ambulance or into the undertaker's car. One was a very heavy-set man.
Yeah.
Very heavy-set man, and they strapped him in. They strap him in with some straps, and hopefully everything works. But when the weight shifted and there was a few not-so-strong individuals carrying him, he slipped down the stairs about 3 or 4 steps, and he kind of just slumped into a corner, and the family was at the top of the stairs, and the horror and the screams and the I'm going to sue the police department and the undertaker and the ambulance people. It was a horrible situation.
I want to just back up to something.
What?
This is a horrible situation, but the undertaker's car is. You mean the undertaker has like a hearse that he carries?
Yeah, when they come in.
He said undertaker's car. I'm thinking about a little 4-door sedan, and it's like
a little Hyundai.
Put it in the back seat,
just prop them up.
Yeah.
No, it's a hearse. It's a hearse.
Just okay. What would you think an undertaker's car would look like?
Well, black, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't like to imagine them driving cars. I like to imagine them in a horse-drawn carriage.
Good point. With a reaper stick.
With a scythe.
So this was. Why don't the who takes a corpse away? Is it cops? Is it the medical people? Is it
if they're pronounced dead on the scene and they're obviously dead, and if they're a young person...
Wait, if they're pronounced dead and they're obviously dead?
If there's an obvious death and there's certain factors that you take into play, and then the paramedics will show up, and there's certain factors that they have to conclude.
Like not breathing, no heartbeat.
Decapitation, gunshot wounds and stuff like that. Drug overdoses, and they've been there a while.
How about a heart attack?
If they've been there a while, but like I said, it all depends on every situation is different. So if for some reason they decide that this person had cancer and they're dead and they're 90 years old, then the police department will wait, and then whatever funeral home the family has chosen, they'll send a few representatives from a funeral home, and they'll put the person in a plastic airtight bag, and they'll put him on a gurney, and they'll wheel him out, and they'll put him into the hearse. If there's a suspicion about the death, if it's a young person, if it's an unattended death, meaning no one witnessed it, no one was home, they'll typically call the medical examiner. You'll have a few people from Boston come in. You might have the state police come in.
Okay, so in which case they leave the scene alone.
They leave the scene alone, and then they'll make a determination, and they'll go to the medical examiner's office, and they'll do an autopsy and try to figure out what happened.
Who makes the death call?
Who pronounces it? Yeah,
who pronounces the death on the scene?
If it's an obvious death, if it's a suicide or a hanging or a gunshot wound or a decapitation, something obvious.
Yep.
Then obviously a police officer can call and say obvious death.
The human head remains conscious for at least 30 seconds after decapitation, so there is a good chance if you have a sharp sewing needle that you can get that head back on within that 30 seconds.
Is that true?
That you can reattach the head? No, but that it is still conscious for like a couple seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
So your head's over here, your body's over here?
In France, when they would execute people, or just ISIS K. Shut up. This was just common with the executions back in the day, like with the guillotine. They would chop off the head, and then they would like hold up the head so it could like see its body.
Oh wow!
They would do really?
Yeah, that's why they held up the head. Like, look at this.
Wow.
See,
so the last thing
I thought he was just a comedian, but he's a historian.
Apparently he was. So could you imagine? So you're saying this. You're saying that they cut off your head, they hold your head up, you look at your body, and the last thing you think before you go to nothingness is, I really should have lost weight. All right. So so let's say you get there and there's a body laying down and just laying on the couch. not moving.
Yeah, obviously you'll check certain vital signs, and the paramedics.
The paramedics do it. So
paramedic will come on scene. The paramedic will come on scene. They'll
what if you get there first?
You still have to wait for the paramedics.
You do.
Absolutely.
Has there ever been a case where a cop looked at somebody?
Well, you can tell a lot of times you can tell, but with drug overdoses,
sometimes you can't.
Right, it's correct.
So, have you ever been in a situation where you or your partner thought that the person was dead, and then the paramedic said he's alive?
Not me personally, but I know of an incident where the officer called in and said, "Yeah, deceased, drug overdose," and whatever the case may be. Younger person in their 30s. And the paramedics showed up and they put all the little electrodes on, and they're like, "Oh my God, we got a heartbeat," and they started doing CPR and giving all the drugs and stuff like that. The person never came back, but yeah. Paramedics and the firemen and the police all work together, so there's a good relationship. But I know in this situation, the paramedics weren't too happy about that.
Yeah, I bet they weren't.
Because the cop made the bad call. When in doubt on situations like that, you just do CPR and provide oxygen. And then you wait for the paramedics to come aboard, and then they're a much greater level of care, and they're much more educated and experienced in life-saving measures than police officers are. Cops are pretty good at life-taking measures. Paramedics are very good at life-saving measures.
All right. And how come they don't tell the family, we're going to be lifting your uncle and carrying him down the stairs? You probably don't want to see this.
Yeah.
Because they know there's a good chance they're going to drop it.
Well, I don't think there's a good chance. It's happened a couple of times. Yeah, I think usually when police officers are there, and depending on the police officer and if his verbal judo skills and his social acuity are up to par, they'll tell the family what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. This is the process. This is what we're going to do. This is how we do it. You should expect us to be here for an hour, 45 minutes, and this is how everything's going to go. That's usually what you tell the family, especially if it's a unexpected type death.
Mm-hmm. Okay, it's surprising to me. I've talked to EMTs, and I know a lot of them wind up hurting their backs. A lot of cops hurt their backs, and it's moving bodies or moving live bodies or dead bodies, because the human body shifts. The human body shifts.
That's why they have the big, strong, burly firemen. Oh, I love me a fireman.
Yeah.
Right, Nate? You love a good fireman?
No, what? What are you fucking saying?
No, you call it the fireman. The firemen assist with stuff like that.
Nathan, if you had your choice of anybody to carry your dead body down the stairs from like second, third floor, would you prefer a firefighter, an EMT, a cop?
I'll tell you what I would prefer.
Yeah.
Instead of being carried down, like let's say I'm on the second floor and I'm dead, I would prefer that they just wrap some rope around my legs, tie the other end of that rope to a horse.
Yeah.
Smack the horse on the end.
Okay. And have them drag you through town.
And then drag my corpse down the street for all to see.
There you go. I got to say, it's a much better death. And then people will be like, oh, yeah, he died because a horse dragged him down the street versus we don't know. We found him alone in his room with a plastic bag over his head and his pants down. We think it was auto asphyxiation accident. Autoerotic accident. Sorry. What did I say?
Close enough, Dave.
Yeah, close enough. All right, we're moving on to the next one.
All right, that was a tough one.
Milford, Mass. Worcester County man apprehended I love this one because it goes to my favorite thing, which is plotting the perfect murder. I started out with a perfect crime, and maybe I'm going to go back to the perfect crime, but as you know from previous episodes, I would like to figure out how to plot the perfect crime or murder, one of the two. And this goes to the perfect murder, although this guy didn't pull it off. A 54-year-old man's body was found inside of a Massachusetts storage locker.
I guess he lived there. Look ahead.
What's that?
He lived in the storage locker.
He was a homeless guy who lived in a storage locker?
I guess he just lived in a storage locker. I guess he was homeless. You can live there.
Okay.
You rent it.
Yeah. Anyway, this Christopher Tetro, who's 28 years old, was arrested for I think so. I think this is true. Working on the charge of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. Tetral was taken into custody without incident. So he wasn't charged with a murder, but he was charged with